All right, so an adventure they call Road to the Playoffs. Kumasi Asante Kotoko. They come up against RC Kadiogo. In the corresponding fixture, they managed to win by a slim margin, 1-0, which was quite okay given the fact that they had to play away from their favorite Baba Yara Sports Stadium. But against RC Kadiogo, a Burkina Bay side, you would expect Kotoko to have a walk in the park, especially when they've had to grind results on the road.
I wouldn't say a walk in the park. Yes, it was important that they got the win. And if you look at the circumstances preceding and perhaps even through the game itself, you have to applaud Kotoko because they were very dominant. But for Mukwala's profligacy, pardon me if that sounds harsh, but I thought he had some chances that he could have put away for them. But for a few other opportunities that he missed, Kotoko should have won that game convincing. But we have seen them and their checkered history with Burkina Bay teams in Kumasi. So that has to be a cautionary tale to them. But regardless, you have to look back on everything that has happened in the last 3 months and applaud Kotoko for managing to scale the first term. And when I say everything that has happened, you have the standoff between the board and the management, the supposed invitation because of the Prosper Nateogun issue, the stuff that was said in the media space about Prosper Nateogun by some people who work for the club, and all of that. Then to now focus on preseason itself, the delay because of unpaid salaries, how eventually it started. And when it started, players had to come and trial before they had to sign some of their contracts and all of that. So move from all of that, have very brief preparation, and take that into this game and play as if there was nothing wrong, and that this was a team that was prepared and provisioned for me was quite remarkable. And it was not as if they lined up with the players from last season. There were some new players. So Koulibaly, his actual name is Sheriff Mohammed, made his debut for them. And we saw Stephen Mukwala also making his debut. Enoch Morrison, who they signed from King Faisal, also made his debut for Asante Kotoko. And it is refreshing to see that beyond the guys you trust, because you trust them because they understand the tradition of the club, they have come to learn the culture of the club and be able to meet the expectations. The new players who come in are also able to complement the efforts of their teammates and give a very good account of themselves on perhaps the biggest of stages as far as football this side is concerned. And watching the game, I like the way Enoch Morrison carried himself. Not too... didn't do anything excessive. Just went about his job meticulously. The basics, passed the ball with the precision of a surgeon, covered his teammates when he had to, moved well, and showed enough enthusiasm for us to be optimistic of what's to come. For Stephen Mukwala, it will take time. I mean, people need to understand that, yes, he is coming into Asante Kotoko with very impressive record, 41 in 73 games, or is it 43 in 71? But the football they play in Uganda is very slow. So in terms of the football culture, he will need time to adjust. In Uganda, there is enough time for a player to think. So I'll give you an example about this whole speed and adjustments to different football cultures. 2 weeks ago, or was it last week, Kalidou Koulibaly was reported to have spoken about the early differences he's noted between English and Italian football. He says in Italian football, you have to, and you can stop and think and decide what you do with the ball. In the Premier League, you run and then you think of what to do with the ball because there's practically no time, which means you're basically thinking on your feet, making that split-second decision under pressure and with no time. That is the sort of migration that Mukwala will have to endure. He has to first acclimatize to the football here. So beyond even getting to learn how his teammates play, what kind of passes they like to make, what kind of crosses they like to hit and all of that.
And the expectations are way too high given how Infegwe and then Mbela have to fit in seamlessly.
Not necessarily. Mbella did not score on his debut.
Yeah.
It was Mfege who scored in that game, I think, versus Dream FC for them. But they also needed time, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that anyone is putting Mokwala under any undue pressure. I'm just saying that it will take time.
Yeah.
Getting a goal or two will boost his confidence. I think what's important for him and for Kotoko now is that he does the simple things well. So hold up play, ball retention, movement into space, link up play with his teammates, setting up his teammates and all of that. Get those ones first. Build his confidence. Take as many shots as possible if he can. If the opportunity comes, don't be shy. Assume that responsibility, but let's not put him under pressure. Those are the things that will give him the confidence to try the things that he's used to be himself, to be expressive, and perhaps to be a bit more daring than he's ever been in his life, because he has to step it up. I mean, where he played, the standard of where he used to play and Kotoko are not the same. Kotoko is a step up as far as those teams are concerned. So that will take time. But in the grand scheme of affairs, I've been impressed with the way the new players that they've signed. I think about 12 or 13 of them. But they are introducing them gradually into the team, which is unlike last season, where there were, I think, wholesale changes from the opening day. It's also nice to see that the man they call winning bonus is back in the team. Yes, is back in the team, and it's as if he was never away, scoring important goals and scoring them when the team needs him.
I'm looking at what it would have meant to their cause if indeed Prosper Ogun was still around. Their captain, what's the name? Ganiu, and I mean a few other players if they had been around. I'm looking at how continuity or if like consistency would have come in handy in their quest to, as it were, get into the money zone of the Champions League.
There is no doubt that Kotoko have moved a few steps back by losing Prosper Ogun and those players. And for me, I believe that I'm not one of those who believes the end justifies the means. Kotoko could go on to win the Ghana Premier League this season and maybe even the MTN FA Cup and make it the double. It will still not change the fact that if they had kept the core of the players that won them the league, Mbella is now leaving. If they had kept the core of the players that won them the league and the manager that won the league and then consolidated that, they would have been much stronger than they are now. Because then there would have not been any need to now go through a cycle of torpor, getting a coach and players who need to acclimatize first before trying to work out what the plan for the football season or what the game plan for the season is. Right? So you're going to lose about a month or two minimum in having to reset and restart the process. And I think that's the way to view some of these things, because look, if Kotoko, Nana Amponsa indicated that he wants to win the CAF Champions League before he leaves. This is his final year, his third year. And I like the answer that Seydou Zebo gave earlier today when they asked him about winning the league or the Champions League. He says he cannot make any guarantees, but he will get the best out of the materials he's been given. What's important for me is that if they are going to bridge the gap between themselves and the teams who are ahead of them on the continent, you do that with consistency. And not just any consistency, but consistency of quality performance and improvement on that quality. When you lose those players, when you lose that manager, you take a few steps back. And it further widens the gulf between the North African teams, a few of the teams in South Africa, and then teams like AS Vita, TP Mazembe, and maybe ASEC New Rosas. Regardless, I think they have a perhaps more balanced squad at the start of the season than they had at the beginning of last season. But we saw what last season's team went on to do. And the last time I was discussing this with a colleague journalist, and I was wondering what Kotoko could have achieved if they had kept the core of the players they had and added Serge Zeze, Steve Mokwala to replace Mbella, or perhaps kept him in Fege and then Mokwala, and then kept Imoro Ibrahim and all of that, and all of those players who have left. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that for some of the players, it was practically impossible to keep them.
Yeah.
Ghani is an example. Promises were made. There was an agreement in place that if certain conditions were met in terms of certain offers and all of that, he will be allowed to move on. Those things have not happened, and the club felt that they needed to respect the players' wishes and respect their own agreements, and then move him on. These things happen. Players move on to clubs all the time. So I will not be the one to blame the club or the player. Some relationships will end at a certain point, but to a certain extent, you can protect your assets. And I feel that has not been done in this case.
Advantage. What do you expect them to do right, being able to consolidate their advantage if they are not losing? And what do you expect them to guard against a Burkina Faso side who are capable of wreaking havoc?
Play the game, not the occasion. Because when it comes to Kotoko and the famous Champions League nights, Champions League afternoons in Kumasi for return league fixtures, it's always the sense of occasion that gets to the players. Some of them are not able to deal with the pressure. And sometimes, even for those who are able to deal with the pressure, for some reason, they just don't perform. So the WAC situation is an example. The Champions Confederations Cup final with Hatzabuk is an example. There are those who will tell you about those battles in the 80s, 90s with Ali, Zamalek. The MC Ulma is an example. Etihad Chemiset. All of those games are games, even Al Hilal in Accra here. So the club has a history of games that they had a significant or a reasonable advantage, metamorphosizing or into something that just spirals out of control. So for me, it's not even about the tactics. It's not even about the lineup. Because if you look through the lineup, whoever they call upon should have enough quality and with a significant understanding, appreciation of the Kotoko brand and what it represents on the continent, be able to walk out there and play to a certain standard. Maybe the talent may not be there, but in terms of effort, let no one fault your efforts. Right? So for me, when it comes to games like this, I'm not interested even in the game plan or the tactics. It is getting the job done. Winning those 50-50 balls, winning those second balls, covering that extra blade of grass.
Or like putting your body on the line for the team.
Doing everything. Because at the end of the day, it's a knockout phase of the competition. You have to win. There's even if Kotoko draws 6-6, 0-0, or lose 2-1, and they have to, and it means they qualify. That is the result I want to see them get. There is no point in. It is not the fancy football or the 5 or 6 goals they will score that will give them a confidence.
You don't care about the aesthetics.
No, because at the end of the day, the opponents that you are going to play at the next round will make nonsense of that scoreline. And the sheer knowledge of what the standard or the quality of the opponent will give you a reality check even before the game starts. So I'm not really interested in some of these things. The confidence will come from knowing that you got the job done and that you were good enough. That's where the confidence will come from. And I feel for this game, the fans, and there's something I have not liked about the Kotoko fans for some time. When things go south, they tend to give up easily. So they stop the singing, they stop the chanting, and some of them, and to be fair, it is consistent with Ghanaian football fan culture. The support and the praises suddenly changes to insults and abuse and all of that. But I like the fact that the Porcupine Tertiary have taken up that mantle and they will back the team from minutes 1 to minutes 90. That is what we want to see on Sunday. And Seydou Zebo indicated that. He mentioned that on Sunday, it is the supporters that will win the game for them. And I think that is someone speaking as though he has been briefed about the history and tradition of this club and the importance the supporters play. Look, there are over 1 million people living in the greater Kumasi area. Kotoko needs only 38,000 of them to fill the Babaya on Sunday. If you call yourself a Kotoko fan, you have to be able to show up there. And not just show up as a spectator, but as a fan, a vociferous fan who's going there in the club's colours, be it the green, be it the gold of last season, be it the red and whites, or be the dominant red. You go there in the club's colours and you make your presence count.
Would you be surprised?
One of the things that has bedeviled Kotoko on the continent has been opponents coming to Ghana and feeling at home.
Yeah.
When they feel comfortable, I mean, when players feel comfortable and confident, they can do anything and everything. That is something Kotoko cannot afford to do. The players will do their bit. And sometimes we need to understand that they are humans. The sense of occasion can get to them. And as much as we would like to say that they need to play the game and not the occasion, they are humans after all. There are some players who have never played in front of even a 20,000 stadium before. So when they see that crowd, it will do something to some of them. It will take maybe 15 minutes for some of them to settle into that game. It is okay. They will miss a chance or two. But in that moment, it is your job as a fan to carry the team along. Because you can't play the football. What you can do is to create the atmosphere for the players to feel the impetus, for the players to feel a certain energy. That intangible energy that will give the players a lift when things are not going their way. Right?
Yeah.
And you see, the psychology of fans needs to change. There's a thin line between trying to intimidate the referee and losing sight of the fact that you are there to support your team and not to chide the referee. So whoever is going into Babaya, and look, they need to go there on Sunday, support the players and support your team. The mistakes will happen. Perhaps Mukwala is going to miss a sitter in the opening 3 minutes. It should not be the foundation or set the tone for the groans and no. I mean, look, we all love our football clubs, but on occasions like this, the fans need to know that whatever your views are, maybe your favorite player may not get selected. Maybe you're still bitter because Prosper Nateogum has moved on, but your allegiance is to the club. Your affinity is to the club, not the people who came to serve the club. And so whatever happens, for me, what's important is not playing the occasion, just playing the football match. Just get the job done.
Qualification is not negotiable. Is it that
there's
no way RC Kadiogo?
No, there is a
support.
There is a chance.
I mean, you seem to be sounding so that, I mean, chances of Kadiogo upsetting Kotoko is way out of order.
No, their chances are slim. I have to say that. They need to win by 2-0 minimum if they are to progress. And I, for one, cannot expect that cannot envision a world where they will score 2 and Kotoko will not score. Right? Yeah. Or a world where, and if Kadiogo win 2-1, they get the advantage because they would have scored more goals on the road. But I just feel that given the size of the club and the people behind, the stuff that they have done, and I am not the biggest fan of Nana Amponsah and his management. They have done things that I'm principally opposed to. They've done things that I don't agree with. But wherever you stand on this management and perhaps this board, they have shown a certain capacity to be able to move away from issues and get the job done. Right? At the beginning of last season, most of us did not expect, or there were people who did not expect that Nana Amponsah would be able to lead the team and have the sort of success that they had. But when the football began, they put those issues behind them. So when I express the level of confidence I'm expressing that they will get this job done, it is born out of my knowledge of what I've seen them do in the last 2 years, that they can respond to adversity. And I feel in this position of comfort, they are better suited to going out there, preparing the team, play the sort of football that will get them the results. And again, it's important that let no one give these players and the coach pressure that you have to play champagne football or you have to play the football that the 64 Battalion or CHMF's Black Stars. No, it's not important, right? The fixation with seeing champagne football is what sometimes drives supporters to go and get unnecessarily critical of their team because the player made a back pass when they expected the pass to go forward, or they tried to dribble and they could not pull it off. No. Those are things that I think that the fans need to disabuse themselves of. But I have supreme confidence that at the end of the day, Kotoko should have enough within them. Look, there are leaders in this team.
Yeah.
The captain, what's his name, Richard Woodoo, turns out to be someone who, in his youthful days, was actually at Kotoko.
Yeah.
So in terms of having the fiber of the fabric of the club, understanding the ethos of the team, he's got it.
Yeah.
He has the temperament, he's got the personality. And I think that if you look at him, if you look at George and Fege, if you look at the other players that they have brought into this team, you have to have confidence that even if they are not going to win the competition, they should have enough within them to protect a 1-0 lead from the first league.
Okay. We look to find out how things will shape up at the Babangida Sports Stadium on Sunday when Kotoko take on RC Kadiogo. Again, keep your predictions coming, but they say it's an adventure to the playoffs of the CAF Champions League. Again, I implore you to subscribe to Sports 101 and leave your comments in the comment section.